Buenas tardes. I hope you all had a lovely lunch. I am Sofia Mingote. I am a CHCI Public Policy Fellow, and I am delighted to be with you today for this fireside chat about Latino leadership and policy. With an estimated 36.2 million Latinos eligible to vote this year, it is critical for elected officials to work together to make progress on Latinos' policy priorities. And it is my distinct honor to introduce our moderator, Marco Davis. Marco Davis is president and CEO of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, commonly known as CHCI. And prior to CHCI, he was a partner at New Profit, where he led efforts to create an equitable social sector. And in the Obama administration, he served as deputy director of the White House Initiative on Educational Excellence for Hispanics. Please welcome Marco Davis.
Thank you so much, Sophia. We really appreciate your leadership in the fellowship program, and thank you all for joining us today. In recent years, much like Sophia just mentioned, in addition to the community growing, there have been significant strides in legislative achievements that have positively impacted Latino communities. But we know that there remain many pressing challenges that need to be addressed. So today we have the honor of engaging in a conversation with two distinguished congressional leaders, Democratic Whip Catherine Clark and CHCI Chair Congressman Adriano Espaillat. For this session, Latino Leadership and Policy, a Fireside Chat. Now let me tell you just the very briefest, because we want to get to the conversation about our two guests. Congressman and Chairman Espaillat represents New York's 13th Congressional District. He is the first Dominican American to serve in the U.S. House of Representatives. He was first elected to Congress in 2016. He is a member of the U.S. House Committee on Appropriations and the House Committee on Education and Labor. Whip, Congresswoman Catherine Clark, has represented Massachusetts' 5th District since 2013. In the fall of 2022, she was elected by her colleagues to serve as Democratic Whip, the second most senior position in the House Democratic Caucus. One of only 2 women ever to serve as Whip, she currently has the distinction of being the highest-ranking woman in congressional leadership. She previously served as Assistant Speaker of the House, as Vice Chair of the House Democratic Caucus, and as a senior member of the House Appropriations Committee. So please join me in welcoming our 2 special guests to the stage, Congressman Adriano Espaillat and Democratic Whip Catherine Clark. So let's jump right into it. I wonder if you all could share any recent legislative achievements that have positively impacted Latino communities and how you plan to build on these successes moving forward. What are the wins so far, and what remains to be seen?
A nice, open question.
Yes.
First, Marco, thank you. Thank you for your work for CHCI. Thank all of you for being here. And of course, my colleague and friend, so grateful for you and your leadership. And what I see for the Latino community and those 36 million plus voters are the wins of the 117th Congress, whether that is creating good union jobs through the infrastructure, getting lead pipes out of every single community in this country, making sure that we are making investments in climate resilience and addressing climate change, seeing just skyrocketing rates of small businesses opening and being supported. And we know that the Latino community is just an incubator of that innovation and of those businesses. Even the CHIPS and Science Act, bringing manufacturing back, and the possibilities and opportunities that holds. The Safer Communities Act, making sure that we are getting rid of gun violence across this country. And as we look forward, there is so much work to be done. And I think so much about the children of this country and what the future is that we are building. And 1 out of 4 children in our schools are Latino. And so the future that we are building, particularly with them in mind, is absolutely critical to our future success and to living up at this moment when we are really at a crossroads of which way we are going to choose to go as a country. Are we going to continue to strive to live up to those ideals of liberty and justice for all, or are we not? Are we going to take a very, very different path forward? It is that work of making sure that we have great representation in Congress, because it matters, and that we are building a future for Latino communities that works for them and that keeps creating opportunity, because that is good for every single person in this country. So there's lots to celebrate, but lots of work ahead of us.
Anything
Well,
to add?
thank you, Congresswoman. I think it's so important to have a woman's perspective in this, right? It's critical, otherwise it won't succeed. And often, we in the Latino community, we seem to carve out our own agenda, and that's important. You know, and immigration is emblematic, and access to health care with the high rates of diabetes is so important, and access to higher education. But, you know, we are America, so the main issues, the bills that were enacted into law under the Biden administration, particularly in the last Congress, are so important to us because we are America. So the infrastructure, the bipartisan infrastructure law, $1.2 trillion with a capital T, right? So how do we get the dollars out the door and to our community is the great challenge.
Right.
And how do we then use the social equity that's written in that law, because it's not just a bricks and mortar piece of legislation, it has a social equity component to it that guarantees that those that have been left behind get access to those dollars and the jobs that it brings. So that's one. Of course, the Inflation Reduction Act, with its investment in the environment, so important for our communities that literally are choking to death, and that our kids are suffering from asthma. And then the American Rescue Act. So those three that drove trillions of dollars are on the table right now, and our job as government, and your job as activists and advocates and members of this program, is to see how do we make it, the nuts and bolts of it, how do we make it work in our community so that we built our bridges. I have the 2nd Avenue subway in my district, right? $7.7 billion. It's going to connect East Harlem, El Barrio, to the rest of the world, literally. So not just a train extension. I want to see how many jobs it creates for local people. So that's the great challenge.
That's great. Thank you for that. And so building on those successes, building on that progress, as we mentioned, there's still things left to do. There's still a few months left in the calendar, even though we know attention gets increasingly pulled in other directions. What do you all think are top priorities on your agenda that Latino communities should be concerned about, should be aware of, should be supportive of? What do you all think you might be able to try to accomplish in the remainder of this Congress?
I think artificial intelligence, it's a major agenda. It should be a major agenda for all of us, because the technology revolution, we sort of like fell behind. So just imagine that this new phase is coming in, right? That's just going to take it to warp speed, right? And we got to catch up, and we got to be part of it. So there is an effort to see how we can get the hemisphere, right, from all the way down from Chile and Brazil to the northern coast, so that we have equity in artificial intelligence, that the traditional biases that are often felt in the technology terrain are not dragged in with artificial intelligence. That your data and your opinions is taken into consideration, and you're not left out. It's so important for this new phase of what I think will once again transform the world, if not the universe. And so this is important that we're front and center in that, and we should do it in English y en español. We should do it in both languages because we have language proficiency in another language. I think is a qualification. It's just like having a master's degree or PhD. In fact, you should get paid more for it. So let's get involved in artificial intelligence.
So thinking of Mother's Day that is coming up makes me think of the many policies that affect Latinas in this country that we have failed to work on. When you are earning, as a Latina, 50 cents on the dollar, it is really hard to see opportunity and the place for you and your children in this economy. And when we have soaring costs of diapers, of groceries, it makes a real difference, that pay equity. And one of the issues that I have been grateful to work with the congressman on, besides pay equity and paid leave, is affordable, accessible childcare that for every single family. But also, we know that who are the early educators? Who are the providers? They are women, overwhelmingly, and women of color. And way too often, we are paying these women who are doing this crucial work that is really the underpinning of all other work, is childcare work, and gives our children such an advantage because they come to school ready to learn and ready to be able to hit that crucial benchmark of reading at grade level by 3rd grade. And yet, while these early educators are caring for our children, they are far too often unable, working full-time or more than full-time, to care for their own families. So we cannot continue to build our country's social safety net on the work of women, and in particular, Latinas. We must make sure that while we are expanding quality, affordable childcare to every family, that we are also making sure that is followed by a livable wage for these critical early educators. And so this is going to be a continued priority for me. And the pandemic really demonstrated to us that what we had known was a long, fragile system, really operating on thin margins, almost came to a breaking point. And if it wasn't for the American Rescue Plan, we would have just decimated our child care system. But every single small business that I talk to the largest global corporations who come through our doors, talk about the need for workers. And this connection of childcare as economic infrastructure is finally being made. But this is a huge impact on Latinas and families across this country, and is one we have to continue to prioritize. And I'll just give you one last statistic on this. Our other developed countries that have similar economies and wealth to the United States invest $15,000 a year for toddler care in their countries. Here in the United States, we invest on average $500. We have to continue to change this paradigm that this is about our economy and the underpinnings of our economy, and not some luxury item that is just a nice have private decision between parents and a child care provider. So that's going to be a top priority for me.
That's great. Thank you very much. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I think I might be able to get in one, possibly two questions if I don't get the evil eye from your staff. I know you all have got to get to vote soon. But if I could first, possibly the last two questions. One is, here in the audience we have Hill staffers, of course. We have representatives from the private sector, folks in the corporate arena, but we also have folks from the nonprofit sector. We have community advocates, academics, researchers, et cetera. We bring all three, we pride ourselves in bringing all three sectors together. So my question to you as leaders is, what guidance, what suggestions, recommendations do you have for our audience about ways in which they can do their part to try and advance these issues? How can they be best partners, allies, supporters of the work you're trying to do to actually achieve these kinds of outcomes that we all need for our community? Do you have any thoughts?
Well, first, I want to say what a critical role and partner CHCI is in this work, and that it matters. It not only matters that we elect representatives, that we are electing members of Congress that look like their communities and bring those life experiences, like Congressman Espaillat, but that we have fellows in our offices, that we have Latinos on our staff committee, who are on staff on our committee staff, that those experiences and perspective are reflected at every single level of the work we do in Congress. And I always tell people who come to my office and sometimes they're like, oh, we're only meeting with staff. I'm like, oh, you are never only meeting with staff. Staff are the ones that help us filter so many issues. And if that representation is not there, we're not going to have a good end product. And we are supposed to come together from different ideologies, different life experiences, different places in the country, and rural, suburban, urban experiences, and come up with a better product. So investing in the fellows like CHCI has, making sure that we have that diverse representation isn't just a talking point. It is really how we make good policy, and it's at the very, it is fundamental to representative government and making our democracy work. And what we are seeing are systematic attacks on all of that. Every single bill, whether it's, and it's usually quite a stretch, are containing attacks on DEI. And it's really no longer just a dog whistle. It's very clear that we are seeing a Congress and a majority in the House that is moving away from this idea of the strength of our country is, to steal a line from Leader Jeffries, the beautiful mosaic that it is. And that is a strength that is threatening and is very much under attack. So I, again, want to thank you. I think that fellow programs like the one that CHCI, and of course our support for electing and ensuring that we re-elect our CHC members, which we're so proud is at historic heights, but we have a lot more work to do, and it's going to be really critical in this election year. Not that we're counting, but 181 days to the election.
Well, thank you, Congresswoman. I just want to double down on what she said, because I'm the ranker in the LEG branch, the Legislative Branch Subcommittee within Appropriations. And the one target that was there clearly by the majority was the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And so
That's right.
when I get to chair that subcommittee, that's going to be my #1 agenda, to bring it back on the table. And so that's so important for the private sector and the not-for-profits and everybody else here to focus on. And the other item, I think, is for us to have some level of synergy, right? For us to be able to work together and be on the same page. I think that's so important because I think CHCI does a great job with young people. CHCI does a great job with its gala, and I hope you all come this year. It will be a spectacular one, as it was last year. But, you know, we need partners. CHCI needs partners to get it done, and we got to be on the same page. We have no other option. For us to guarantee the success for the hundreds and thousands of young people that have come through our program, we got to be on the same page, and that means having the private sector and of course the non-for-profit that's so critical in preserving our safety net, particularly during very difficult times. During the pandemic, of course, the non-for-profits were critical in our neighborhood in making sure that people's lives were safe. So it's so important for us to continue the dialogue and to find the synergy that is important to guarantee success.
Thank you. Thank you both for that. Greatly appreciate it. And as we get ready to wrap our time with you, maybe I can ask you both to, as a sort of a closing remarks, share with us maybe a slightly longer term idea and maybe ending on a more positive note. What is your vision for a thriving Latino community in the United States? What does that picture look like to you? And if you can, although that's probably a longer answer, is how do we get there? What do we need to do to achieve that kind of a vision?
Young people. Young people are not just the future, they are the present, right?
That's right.
But don't forget abuelita either, okay?
That's right.
Because now I'm an abuelo, so I take exception to that. So, but young people, I know that every generation seems to sort of like not to have the confidence that they should have on their young people. And they say, oh, los jóvenes, no saben lo que están. No. I think that young people are better equipped. They have tools that my generation didn't have at their disposal. They, I think, are far further ahead than what we were in the last generation. And I think they're going to catapult us to a place that we've never been to before. So we have to work with young people and provide them all the opportunities possible for them to lift their families, right? Lift their communities, right? And in essence, save our country. I think it's up to young people to save. We are at a crossroad. I know that every 4 years you hear the same, this is the most important campaign, or, I mean, it's like a reboot, right? But I think that your challenge is to save our country. And I think that you're going to do it. And we need to support you. We need to bring the resources to the table and bring the opportunities to your doorstep so that you can make that happen. And you must engage the process. You must. There's no choice in it. Doesn't matter what you think. You're fine. And young people have an array, diversity of opinions, believe me. I have it at home myself. But you will save this nation. And you are an army of goodwill that can get just about anything done.
It's fabulous. Anything?
You want me to follow that? I don't know, but I think I will just say amen, and just know your power. I think that is, I think it is easy to look, and so many of you are so involved on the work on Capitol Hill, but know your voice and your power. Of your community, of your family, of you as an individual. It is the only thing that is going to, as the congressman said, get us out of this place we are in and to a better one, where going back to the 1 in 4 kids sitting in school today who are Latino, to build a future that is worthy of them. And that means building economic opportunity, to continue to address the high costs of housing, to make sure that healthcare is a right and not a privilege, and continue to work on reducing those costs, working for the future of the planet and doing it in a way where we are creating good paying union jobs as we go. This is all on the ballot coming up, and it is all going to be up to us individually. And at this lovely event and fireside chat, which there's no fire, but we can imagine it, the warm glow of the embers, you know, I don't want to put democracy on your shoulders, but it's all on your shoulders. And it's going to be the conversations that we are having, family member to family member, neighbor to neighbor, continuing to say that every single person, every single community in this country deserves economic opportunity, deserves to have great public schools for their children, deserves to see themselves in the future, deserves to have a secure vote, and deserves to see themselves reflected in community leaders and in members of Congress and government. And that is work that we cannot do without each other, and it is work that is so crucial to keep making those ideals that our country was founded on actually become reality. And we can do this together. And I get so much optimism from meeting your fellows, from seeing people in my own district and as I travel around the country who understand the stakes of this moment and are demanding that their voices be heard. And that is how we are going to meet this moment in history that none of us asked to be in, but here we are. And so we very much look forward to winning back the majority in the House and making sure that we continue this work in partnership with all of you. And I'm so grateful to each and every one of you for the work you do in your individual roles in making sure that we continue to make progress.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. Chairman Espaillat, Whip Clark, thank you both for being here with us and for sharing these great insights and this great wisdom. And thank you, most importantly, for your leadership in the Congress and for the nation. We're really grateful for your time with us here today. We know you've got to get to votes, so we're gonna release you.
I'm here just to make sure that the congressman gets to votes on time as the whip.
Well, next year we'll have the Fireside.
Yes,
Yeah, that's
we'll have
right.
an actual.
Thank you,
fire.
Margaret.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
So folks, just before we let you go, just in closing, last couple of things I want to mention. I mean, I want to first of all sort of recap and remind us, I think, of the really profound comments that we just heard from the two members of Congress here. They talked about sort of the critical need for investment in our community. They talked about sort of the absolute importance of education, given the size and the growing and the youth of our population and the need for attention to that. We talked about workforce investment. They talked about sort of the need in seeing how our community is increasing and how employers need to focus on that. Whip Clark in particular sort of pointed out the absolute need, which we agree with 100% at CHCI, the need to focus on addressing the needs and helping to lift up Latinas within our community who don't get nearly the support and for whom the wage gap, as we know, is really quite alarming. I want to say criminal, but I feel like I'd get in trouble for that. But it's awful. It's really, it's despicable, right? And childcare and the need to one of the solutions that we need is an investment in childcare to really help support the women in our workforce and really families in general to be able to navigate that, and of course health. And I think in their vision, as they talked about sort of the future and what they look to, Chairman Espaillat talking about the power of young people, right? Which again is something that at CHCI we live and breathe, I would argue, every day. Investing in our young people and supporting their leadership and lifting up and seeing the power that they have. And taking a step back, sort of one of the reasons we have this fireside chat, one of the reasons we do this issue summit, is because as we see these members of Congress who in fact were instrumental in founding CHCI, they have their legislative agenda. They seek to create these policies and create these laws. But those of us here in Washington, D.C. know that the work that they do cannot be done without literally an entire army of people behind them, with them, side by side alongside them. And those are the congressional staff here in town who make the trains run, who absolutely operate and build, in many cases, the railroads, right? They do the research, they write the policy, they make the recommendations, all those kinds of things working with the members. And so what we try to do at CHCI is invest in that leadership. We operate our leadership programs from our Next Gen Latino Leadership Program for high school students to our congressional internship program to our public policy and postgraduate fellowship programs, to our newest program that's in its second cohort right now, our Latino Hill Staff Academy. We try to invest in both the young people and just the people, because many of them are not as young and don't, and like me, I remember very clearly, don't want to be referred to as young forever. But they are the folks who are really building the infrastructure and building the supports and helping to lay the groundwork for these agendas to be accomplished. And what we do with this convening is to bring together leaders like those staffers with the members, with the private sector, with the nonprofit sector, to try to talk about these issues in depth. And so hopefully you all have so far, and for the next day and a half, will continue to be enlightened from these conversations. You all are the true experts because you are steeped in these issues every day. And so we can foster a richer conversation about these issues and really inform their agenda, right? And also hopefully through this work, disseminate both the information about these issues and the need for us all to lend our voices and our efforts to address these challenges. And that goes well beyond Washington, D.C. We need leaders from our community in all places, in all sectors, in all roles, and in all cities throughout the country, talking about these issues, raising their voices, making our needs and concerns known, in particular because our community is underrepresented in leadership, as we know, all too much. So 9 times out of 10 in most cases, when decisions are being made, when policies are being created, when resources are being allocated, 9 times out of 10, we're not in the room. 9 times out of 10, there's no one from our community who has a seat at that table, and we're trying to sort of change that dynamic. And so that's the purpose of what this is all about. So I just wanted to help remind us about that and ground these types of conversations. And so hopefully this conversation with these 2 members of Congress have been enlightening, and the rest of the discussions throughout, again, today and tomorrow will be that too. As we get ready to wrap, we're going to move into our break time. We have a slightly extended break now. You get a little bit of time to network, to connect with each other, to further these conversations on your own. But be sure to come back here and to our 2 breakout rooms at 2 p.m. for our simultaneous breakout sessions. And there's some really interesting conversations we have coming up next. We're changing up the format, if you all don't know. We have 2 panel discussions, but they're very different panel discussions than usual. The first one is called Best Practices for Engaging Hill Offices and Improving Diversity. And those are with senior congressional staffers. We're having a conversation. And so they're going to share their insights and their perspectives. And that's in Breakout B. And then we also have here back in the auditorium called Paso a Paso, Paths Toward Hill Leadership and Increasing Diversity. And that's actually going to be with 3 chiefs of staff who themselves are going to talk about ways in which and efforts that they've seen and their efforts to help increase diversity and increase leadership, as I just mentioned, to address this challenge of us being underrepresented. But also we have a 3rd session, which is going to be a special Spark Talk called Ahead of Disease Together through one of our corporate partners, and that's going to be in Breakout A, specifically focusing on how we sort of challenge and tackle some of the diseases in our community. And of course, after that, after our closing plenary today, please be sure to join us for our networking reception at 4:15 out in the pre-conference area. As we close, as we get ready to go, before you go, Congressman Espaillat mentioned our gala, our upcoming Hispanic Heritage Month activities. We know they're always exciting. And we wanted to just give you a little bit of a preview by sharing a quick highlight reel from our last Hispanic Heritage Month activities, our 2023 Annual Leadership Conference and Gala. So it's a quick video, and then we will break and head out to conclude our networking. So with that, thank you very much, everybody, for being here with us. And as they say in the movies, roll the tape. We're making history as we speak. Years from now, people will look back and remember these times as the times when our community ascended and began to take its rightful place in American society.
This will be a record-breaking gala. We deserve to have our history told. We deserve to have our legacy preserved.
CHCI develops really close connections, which are the key to helping you get where you're going. When you do not come from a place where you already have this built in, you have to then reach out and create your own. And CHCI allows for you to do that.
I'm a firm believer that without CHCI, I wouldn't have accomplished what I've accomplished so far.
I'm here because I was invited to open up a panel and give some opening remarks, and I was proud to do that as a CHCI alum myself. This is where my wife and I actually met. We are in the moment of history, for sure.
The fact that we're almost 1 in 5 people in the United States, the fact that we're so much more than the stereotypes, the fact that we're doing so much more than they see or hear or read about in the mainstream press.
The largest congressional Hispanic caucus in history at 42 members strong.
I've grown up being an advocate for others around me, trying to be that voice. I saw my mother being the voice for her children, and I've always taken that role very seriously.
We're 20% of the U.S. population. We're 60 million people. We're the largest voting bloc after white people. We're understanding the power that we have.
We know diversity is our strength. Our unity is our power.
CHCI provides an opportunity for us to realize that we're involved in the arts, we're involved in science, we're involved in making this country amazing, to realize that we belong, you belong. No te rajes. Don't you ever give up.
And I know that it opens up doors. I know that it creates opportunities and career paths. That's what CHCI is all about, right?
We empower each other, we uplift each other, and we just really provide opportunities for everybody to really shine in this space.
This is our time, and we must work together to realize the full potential of the Latino community throughout our land.
The president is in the room.
Help me welcome the President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden.
I want you all to know, I see you, I hear you, we need you. You never give up. We always dream, we always believe.